Hey everybody, this is Mike Gormley, and it's the Mike Gormley Show. Thanks for dropping by. We have a guest today by the name of Jack Ashton, who might as well reveal. I've known him since I think he was still in high school when I first met him, or close to it,
Yeah,
and Detroit days, and he's in Detroit, but on the screen. Hi Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
How is it? How is it being back in Detroit? To explain, Jack lived in LA for 45 years and went back to
Yeah.
Detroit about a year ago.
Yeah, it's a year at the end of this month. Yeah.
So you just went through your first winter in 45 years.
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, I definitely got I got a rude awakening to that. It was like one of the coldest winters on record here. So it was,
Oh,
and it went below, and it was a rough one. But my California body was not happy about it.
so, but how is it being? You were part of the music scene in Detroit when
Yeah.
it was really hopping. It was, the Stooges and MC5 and um, who else? I mean, a long list of
Well,
people.
yeah.
Seeger starting out, and
Right.
now you're the veteran, and you're
Yeah.
back in Detroit. So, how's it look to you? How does Detroit, the music world, looking to you?
Well, uh, the way I explain it to people, because people have asked me, why did I come back? And I came back for various reasons, economically, mind-wise. My family left California, so it was no reason for me to stick around. So I thought I'd come back to the Motor City where it all started for me, from managing bands and booking them at the Grandy Ballroom, like you said, with the MC5, the Stooges. I mean, seeing the whole English invasion come over from England for the first time in almost every case, except for a few. And it, my historical background here is, I owe it all to really my friend Thomas Weschler, who was Bob Seger's road manager. And Bob Seger, when I first met Bob, he was with the Last Heard. And then it was the Bob Seger system. So I go back that far. So, since like you said, from my teenage days, and then the Punchy and my friend Thomas got me my first job at Mercury Records. And then as I met you at the Detroit Free Press first, back when I was in high school, I met you again when I joined you in Chicago with
Yeah,
Mercury Records, because I went from
okay.
local to regional to national. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Who putting a time frame in when you got to Mercury Records in Chicago?
Yeah.
What were the artists you were working on right away?
Well, the first stuff that I remember working on, well, the first thing that happened is that, uh, whether this means anything to anybody or not, but Lee Abrams was the program director at WRIF, and they were being programmed by Lee, but it was sort of being programmed by Sklar. Is that what his name? Out of New York. I can't. Anyway, but Riff had just literally gone on the air, and I when I walked through the door and working for Mercury Records, I received uh, the uh, the Look at Yourself album by Uriah Heep, and the song that emerged out of here and ended up going on CKLW, which was the big powerhouse back then, was Easy Living. And so that blew right out of here like crazy. CKLW added it. I think everybody in Chicago at Mercury was, their eyes popped out of their head, because, nothing like that quite hit me yet, because it was all so new to me. And so all I really did, Mike, was I just ran around like a crazy maniac and just worked my ass off and did everything I could go to and you know, like retail stores, one stops, whatever, and just promote and do everything that I was told to do.
But promote in the music industry, what it means, get the record on the air mainly. That's
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
get 'em
Yeah.
on the radio.
Yeah.
There was an
But then,
army, but in Detroit at that time, you had 2 or 3 monster stations in
yeah.
different. You mentioned CKLW, which was actually in Canada across the
Right.
river, but
Mhm.
because it was there and it had some like 50,000 watts, you could hear it in like Tennessee. I mean, it was just
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable. And they broke so many acts. I mean, Alice Cooper and
Hmm.
you know, just so many acts came out of there because of the power that it
Yeah.
had.
Right.
And then in Detroit was a radio station called WABX,
Right.
that legendary and
Hmm.
freeform radio for the most part.
Right.
Very, very different. Played all kinds of stuff, but you
Yes.
had to promote them too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they were already on Uriah Heep. They were already playing the record, but RIF was not. Okay. So I don't know what I wasn't cognizant to, you know, ratings yet. So I don't know whose ratings were quite, I didn't have that capacity to understand that yet. I hadn't, I was still learning the ranks of everything. And so, it was quite extraordinary as I went on to work even the R&B stations in Detroit with me looking like what I look like with long hair, and so they used to call me the Peter Frampton of Detroit, and so even then I was ended up breaking Joe Tex out of here called I Gotcha, and you remember that because you even came in to give the gold records around the stations.
Yeah, I remember that. And
Yeah.
funny enough, I heard it on the radio about 2 days ago. It's the first time I've heard I Gotcha in decades.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. They still play it here. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It really, those early, because I was working for the distributor at first, you know, Mercury hadn't hired me full time yet. And so after these things started happening, and then I started really getting a handle on what was going on, I just continued just to just become a promotion man at full strength. Yeah.
Before you became promotion man, you mentioned managing artists, but
Yeah,
you were still either in or just out of high school.
right.
Um, so you were
Uh,
still learning and
right. Well, the other education I got, Mike, was working in a record store. I worked at Discount Records in Birmingham, Michigan. And obviously, that gave me a tremendous amount. I mean, I was working at the record store when the first Led Zeppelin album came out. You've got to remember, this is back in 1967, 68. So, you know, we're right on the edge of like all these amazing English groups blowing right through here, you know, and so and I got to see and listen to all these songs, you know, without buying them because I worked at a record store.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
had yeah, go ahead.
um, so when I want to, I know we could talk about Detroit all night, and I'll
Yeah.
talk about more up to date stuff. But I still
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Grandy Ballroom and what it meant. So there's these great radio stations, WRIF, ABX,
Mhm.
CKLW, that also the Grandy Ballroom was, I guess they called it the
Yeah, the Fillmore of
yeah,
Detroit.
the Fillmore
Right.
of
Yeah.
Detroit. And
Well,
it was. I mean, it was just a list of bands that came through there week after week after week. It was
right. Right.
um,
I mean, well, I can tell you this, the story that I was told, and because I spent so much time with Russ Gibb in those early years, uh,
Russ Gibb was a guy who owned
who
and ran the Grandy Ballroom.
right. Well, he didn't own it, but it was owned by these movie theater fella,
Yeah.
Gabe Glantz, and Russ and him got together, and that's what happened. But the story is that actually Dan Carlisle, who used to be on WKNR and then ended up on WABX, went with Russ to San Francisco to review the Fillmore and met with Bill Graham, and they brought that back to Detroit,
Mm.
That model, and they created the same thing exactly here in Detroit. I mean, it was remarkable of the similarity of that, of the Fillmore West, especially
Yeah.
the Fillmore West, not like the Fillmore East, but like the Fillmore West. It was way more psychedelic. They brought that whole psychedelic from the watercolors on the walls, and all the incense and the whole just vibe. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was a time to, I'm really grateful that I was able to grow up during that period of time.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
mean, you got to see Jeff Beck with Rod Stewart. I mean, people were just learning about who Jeff Beck was from the Yardbirds, and no one knew who Rod Stewart was. And Ronnie Wood was the bass player in the band, and Mickey Waller on drums, and Nicky Hopkins on piano. I mean, these amazing players that I know today, but here I am there at the Grandy, and I had no idea who any of those people were at that time. So, it's
You've
quite
quickly learned.
remarkable.
You've
Yeah,
quickly
yeah,
learned.
yeah, yeah.
What was the first artist you saw at the Grandy? Do you remember?
It's kind of a blur, but I can only tell you that it seems like I was there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because it was open 3 nights a week like that. And so I had 5 different bands, and my bands were the opening bands. And then a fellow by the name of G. Pollen, who managed the Rationals, the Time, the Apostles, all these other bands out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, was the second tier. I was always opening for his bands because we were the opening acts.
Yep.
Then it was Jeep's bands, and then it was Iggy and the Stooges, or the MC5, and then the Cream, or the Jeff Beck Group, or Procol Harum, or the original Fleetwood Mac, or the Who. It was like, like I said, crazy, crazy stuff. Led Zeppelin playing at the Grandy Ballroom. I mean,
Yeah, the Who chose the Grandy Ballroom to debut Tommy.
mhm.
Not for the world, they played it in London, but for North America, it was the Grandy Ballroom that got the nod
Yeah.
to present that because of Townsend liked the place and all
Yeah, he
that
really
kind of stuff.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Who really loved Detroit. They played here. They actually, one of the first places they played was Southfield High School. They were playing high schools back then, and so they played Southfield High School the first time that I ever heard them played in Detroit. So I mean,
The Who.
the Who played at a high school here in Detroit before they played the Grandy.
Amazing. Well, anyway, we haven't mentioned more recent stuff, and we're gonna take a break in a second. We're gonna
Yep.
listen to a band that you worked with later on once you got out of Detroit, which was
Right.
Buckman Turner Overdrive, uh,
Right.
and we're listening to their track "Taking Care of Business" on our way out to commercial. So come on back, folks, and we'll continue the talk.